I've occasionally had conversations with students who've suggested that there's a difference between English and mathematics, and I've said, no, actually, mathematics tries to define things with precision, and good mathematics succeeds. And similarly, good English defines things by precision. And it's not often that one can say with precision that a political figure is defined by illegality. But Donald Trump, it's not hyperbole, it's biography. His presidency, his campaign strategies, now his foreign policy dealings bear the same hallmark: contempt for the law, a preference for thuggery, and a perverse admiration for power unshackled by morality. So there is the story of Crimea at the moment, which is overshadowing everything. But this morning, there's a story of the pardon of Michelle Fiore, a woman convicted of defrauding donors, purporting to raise money for a police memorial, and instead spending over £70,000 on her own rent, cosmetic surgery, and her daughter's wedding. And a jury found her guilty on 7 counts of wire fraud and conspiracy. And yet, Donald Trump, now reinstated to the Oval Office, ensconced behind the Resolute desk under an orange wig, reached for his golden pen and wrote off her crimes, not because she was innocent, but not because of any miscarriage of justice, but because she is loyal, because she was Lady Trump, because legality is optional if you're part of the tribe. Her case is grotesque, but in Trump's America it is emblematic. She was some sort of judge, and yet she had no legal degree. The pardon wasn't an isolated case. In the same week, he offered clemency to Capitol rioters, floated impunity for January the 6th conspirators. He's created an entire subculture of legality as theatre, a society in which guilt or innocence has nothing to do with the law, but everything to do with political allegiance. He is the president who does not tolerate, who tolerates illegality. He tolerates corruption. In fact, he requires corruption. And that brings me grimly to the foreign policy, specifically to Trump's unconscionable manoeuvrings on Crimea. And I'm only talking about this really because I was catapulted into talking on television a few minutes ago, and it's made me really think about the details. So in 2018, the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, stood firm, saying that the United States would never recognize Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea. It was a bipartisan principle rooted in international law. But today, under Trump's leadership, it's rumored, plausibly, that the United States is preparing to twist Ukraine's arm into accepting the de jure Russian sovereignty over Crimea. This isn't just a betrayal, it's a global equivalent of a bribe. Crimea is not a bargaining chip, it's a sovereign Ukrainian territory, protected not only by Ukrainian constitution, which forbids ceding land, but by the Budapest Memorandum, in which Ukraine surrendered its nuclear arsenal in exchange for guarantees of its territorial integrity. And let's not forget, Vladimir Putin signed a treaty in 2003 explicitly recognizing Crimea as Ukrainian. If you said today in Russia what Putin himself wrote in 2003, you would be jailed. But Trump, the serial deal maker, who is comically bad at deals, is now floating. I could stop the sentence there, couldn't I, and look down into the loo and keep flushing. Is now floating a peace that rewards the aggressor, that punishes the victim, that redefines legality as optional. It is Michelle Fiore diplomacy, fraudulent, self-serving, and dressed up as virtue in a wig. The comparison is fitting. In both cases, Fiore and Crimea, Trump rewards criminality if it serves his narrative. He excuses the lawbreaker and bullies the law-abiding. His instinct is never with the underdog. He doesn't stand with Zelensky, whose country is fighting a war of survival against overwhelming odds. He stands with Putin, a man who poisons journalists, jails dissidents, carries out cyber attacks on the United States and the United Kingdom, who may not even be alive, who is a concept of illegality himself, a concept of disorder, of chaos, of unreality. You know, when you look at theology, I think it was Augustine who said that the That evil is defined as the absence of good. Evil is defined as a nothing. Putin is now defined as a nothing. And Trump's instincts are tyrannical because he admires nothing. Nothing will come of nothing. He admires tyrants. Putin is not an aberration in his worldview. He's an aspiration. It is hardly surprising that Trump believes Putin's lies. After all, Trump lives by them. Trump lives by lies. He lies about election fraud. He lies about criminal convictions. He lies about everything from crowd size to climate change. Probably to the contents of his trousers. So when Putin says he's the victim, Trump nods. Oh. Big victim. When Russia claims Ukraine must give up its territory, it must give up the territory it owns, Trump shrugs. Now, Vice President J.D. Vance has floated a proposal, another floater, has floated a proposal to freeze the war at current territorial lines, a Korea-style frozen conflict. This is dressed up as realism. In truth, it's appeasement in a black tie. It's a Munich 1938 for the present podcast generation. No conflict is truly frozen when one side wants more. Putin will pocket the land, regroup and press west. We've seen this playbook in Georgia, in Chechnya, in Moldova, now in Ukraine. There's a word for this behaviour, illegality. But it's more than that. It's a kind of ideological nihilism. For Trump, legality is whatever he can get away with. The Constitution is an obstacle. International treaties are trivia. Pardoning convicted fraudsters like Fiore is no different from offering territorial pardons to Vladimir Putin. It's a consistent pattern. Embrace the criminal, punish the innocent, call it patriotism. And let's end with a warning. If Trump can pardon criminals at home and recognize illegal occupations abroad, then the lesson is chilling. Law is not sacred in Trump's world. In Trump's world, there is no law. It's a tool, a costume, a broken compass waved in the face of anyone naive enough to believe in truth, justice, and honor. He's not a man defined by illegality. He's a man who hopes to redefine illegality, to redefine the law, and to profit by it.